Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, as you can see, Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, and I'm joined once again by my trusty sidekick, Sean Martin, at Sean Martin TCW. It's Black Friday, and as you can see in the strap along the bottom, we've got a week-only deal for £1 a month for the first 6 months for your Celtic Ways subscription, or if you fancy, you can take out a yearly subscription for the sum of £17.49, which is a 50% reduction. So take advantage of that Black Friday deals and subscribe to the Celtic Way. Sean, it's the morning after the night before. Celtic were really unlucky. They lost 3-2 to Bayer Leverkusen, out the Europa League, into the Conference League, but plenty to be cheerful about, Sean, I'd thought.
I agree with you. I think I'm not really going for the negativity on this occasion. I think there's they get beat, and I've no long tweeted out my thoughts on it from the game, and I think you can be disappointed with the result without completely writing off the fact that there was a lot of good things about the performance as well. We spoke about it off camera. You pointed out the fact that it's Bayer Leverkusen a few months ago, with the state of the squad, the way that Ange Postecoglou found it. If you say come November, second last group game in a really, really tough group, because you've got to remember, before Dortmund get confirmed as getting into the Europa League on Tuesday night, Leverkusen and Betis won the top 5, top 6 for the favourites for the whole tournament. Got to remember that, I think. I think, as we said, if you'd have said that in July, come November, you're going to be going toe-to-toe and you're going to give them an absolute genuine scare in their own back garden. I think you'd have went, well, that's progress at that point. As I say, you can be disappointed with the result, but I am not subscribing to a lot of negativity over it. I think they played well. I think there's a lot to take from it.
Sean, we've been banging about this since the start of the season. The lack of strength and depth in the Celtic squad. Now, a lot of the negativity came from the fact that a lot of the supporters were disappointed with the substitutions. But I'm going to get Rab's comment up here. Rab McEwen comment. First comment. So, I thought Celtic were excellent last night. Yes, people will point to the substitutions, but for me, the right call was Forrest and Jota, who were lagging, getting up and down the park. Subs just never produced. Now, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The substitutes that were brought on lacked the quality of the guys they replaced. And also, Ange can't legislate for the fact that when the substitutes came on, they didn't do the job that they were meant to do, impact the game, carry Celtic forward, and help them see the game out. Yeah, you can, people are blaming a lack of game management, stuff like that. I fail to see that, Sean. I just think that, as we've been speaking about since the start of the season, there's just a lack of strength and depth and quality in that Celtic squad. And if the manager gets backed by the board in January and is allowed to bring in more quality players, then that if they'd have been in situ, that game could have finished so different. Celtic could have seen that out and could have won for the first time in Germany. I'm convinced of that.
No, I agree with that, and I mean, literally, I think every single post-match, whether they've won or not, I've kind of had to use some form of the words squad depth issue. It's the same thing again. But that said, I've already commented. I think it's overall a good performance. On the subs, I'm not going to lie, I can see where people are getting annoyed. That's where it clearly that was a watershed moment of where the game kind of started going against Celtic again. Because I actually thought that the way that they responded in the first half to not particularly getting a sniff. They were good with the ball, but they were nowhere near it up front. No penetration at all for the first 10, 15 minutes. Then they conceded in the 16th minute. And I thought the response to that said a lot about them, because it was a polar opposite for the first game, which Ange talked about in the lead up to this one. They didn't let it necessarily rattle their confidence. They didn't let it lead to more mistakes like they did in the first game. In fact, they started playing better once they conceded. They controlled the game a wee bit more, and slowly they get back into the game. They turned the tide completely because they ended up going 2-1 up. And I think that is part of the reason I'm feeling so positive about it, even though they get beat. That you can't really underestimate that response. That was what he was looking for. Now with the subs, yes, as I say, that is where it started coming apart in the end. But I see the logic. I agree with what Rab was saying. I look, Forrest was never going to complete 90 minutes, not on his first start since August. So he was always going to come off, and I think it was always going to be for Abada. You can't, as you said, legislate for whoever come on not really kicking a ball. I think Jota, I'd maybe have left him on a wee bit longer because he put in a hell of a shift trying to get himself any sort of space, which he found hard to come by a lot of the time. But at the time that he went off, he was getting a wee bit more of it because Leverkusen were having to come out and go for it a wee bit more than they were beforehand. And that left a wee bit of space for him to kind of show a wee bit more of his skills. So I'd have maybe left him for another 5 minutes, but regardless, he probably would have come off anyway. And you can't really argue with the logic of the subs, I don't think, because given that Leverkusen were going to be going for it a wee bit more, then there was already hints that they were going to be, as I say, with Jota, they're vulnerable to a swift counter, not least that second goal that Celtic scored. So getting fresh legs out there with a wee bit of pace and a wee bit of trickery, it made sense to me. We kind of touched on it off air before we come on about Beaton having to go off. I think that was a miss. I think that was not like for like. McCarthy coming on, I think his positional awareness was suspect again. And I think there's definitely, as Rab said, there's definite logic to the subs. It's just how they performed when they come on.
Yeah, Michael Quinn comes in. Morning, Michael. Good performance, but a sub unfortunately aren't at the right level. I have to agree with that. And good old Frank Brennan comes in. He's a bit more upset, disappointed. Doesn't even to begin to cover it this morning and to come away with nothing after heroic efforts from Kyogo, Jota, Hart and Juranovic in particular. In fact, I'm pretty angry, to put it mildly. Frank, I don't know if angry is the right word. Possibly frustrated is more the kind of phrase I would use, because I think it was there for the taking for Celtic, and you know they've came up short again. But I go back to it and say from where they've come in 5 months under Ange to run a team of Bayer Leverkusen's quality so close after being scalped 4-0 at Celtic Park. It's signs of progress, and you can actually pinpoint where it's gone wrong, i.e. the lack of squad depth and the substitutes, and possibly the fact that we still lack players in certain departments. Sean, I'm thinking defence, midfield. I would say maybe 2 defenders, 2 midfielders and a striker. Ideally would form part of my wish list in January. And if Ange can force the board to release the funds, then I would say that's the kind of things he'll be targeting, possibly.
Aye, on the mention of a striker, that actually reminds me that as much as the wingers are seem to be, well, for what I can see, seem to be coming in for a wee bit more of the sting of the subs not really working. I don't think Ayeti's a counter-attacking striker, and I think you could see that. I think any moves, whenever it did get to him, I think they kind of broke down. But that said, again, and I've pointed this out in my kind of reflective piece, I think Kyogo was always likely to come off at some point as well, so I'm not necessarily surprised he didn't play 90 minutes either. Looking at it a wee bit, he's only completed 3 90 minutes since he joined the club, and one of those was on Saturday at Hampden, so the chances of him doing 2 in a row were very slim to begin with. And again, it just reinforces the point that I keep having to say about the squad depth issue. It depends who's coming on in their place, because it's not that the tactics were wrong, so to speak. It's not that they should start lumping it. It's not that they can't even defend, because they actually defended pretty well from open play, I thought. And at the point of the subs in that period where they had to make a few subs, they'd got into a bit of a groove, and I actually thought they were kind of getting into the swing of things of getting the ball and trying to get a counter attack, playing it about when they had it. I thought they get into a groove, but that is where you need the people to come off the bench to be of the requisite quality to be able to reinvigorate what's happening, not deteriorate. So
to affect the game. Sean Haggerty comes in. Sean, it's the sub that done us, man, all day. Yeah, a lot of people saying that, Sean. Jim Stevenson says the present squad has found its level. We would have accepted the Conference League before we kicked the ball. And Donny Boy comes in and says lack of squad depth was down to the board's mismanaging of the football side of the club, in my opinion. We've spoken about various things like that before. John Curry comes in and says we didn't need to chase for a third goal. And then Brad McCune said, who would have thought we'd have missed Beaton when he went off? Yep, just shows you the way he's been playing. I get that too. Donny Boy comes in again and says might be another 2 windows before we've got quality on the bench that doesn't disrupt the flow of the team when they're brought on. And that's That's a fair comment as well, you know. So, and Frank Brennan comes in and says, none of us knows exactly what Jota was thinking when he was hooked by Ange, but he was absolutely fuming. And if that's because he's worked out the manager as a managerial fatal flaw, then he's away. Frank's very upset at Sean, you know. Frank's usually a bit more upbeat than that. Come on, Frank. Raise yourself off the canvas. It wasn't that bad. Celtic played particularly well in spells of that game. You know, so there's positives and negatives there, Sean, isn't there? To be honest. But I'm erring in the positive side because I thought Celtic played particularly well in spells, and you can actually pinpoint where it went wrong. I think the fact that they were 8 minutes away from getting a monumental result just hurt everybody, really, didn't it?
I think so, aye. And it's only natural. I mean, it was almost, and it would have been a historic result if they'd have won. There'd been a great result if they drew as well, to be honest. But to come away with nothing in terms of points was disappointing. But I don't, and I say this in my piece as well, I don't think they've come away with nothing in general, because I think the way they performed, I think the way they went toe to toe. All right, when you're using Ange's terminology, they didn't quite measure up in terms of doing it for the full 90 minutes, but they were damn close to it. And I think that has to be used in a positive frame of mind going forward, because they probably, likely, depending on who they get in the Conference League, probably won't play a team of that quality again this season.
Yeah, and also as well, you know, Ange said about measuring up. You know, they gave a great account of themselves against a team who, you know, they're riding high in the Bundesliga. You know, so you know that's as you said, they're one of the favourites. Celtic had to go to Germany and Spain. They've gone to Germany and Spain. They've scored 5 goals. They've taken nothing. Okay, negatively you can say they've conceded the most in the Europa League. That's fair enough, but that's the way the manager plays, doesn't it? You know, and he said he's not going to change. So there is no point in hammering at him, away at him, saying, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? He's said that's the way he's going to play. Makes for exciting football, makes for high-scoring games, especially when you're away from home. But the nucleus and the nub is there, Sean. One of the days Celtic will get it right on their travels. They will get it right.
Well, they already got it right against Ferencváros. I realise that's a different level of opposition, but it's still something. They've gave it more than a good go in every game, I would argue, even the one they get beat 4-0. I'm quite disappointed it didn't get taken to our last game at Parkhead against Betis, because that would have been a phenomenal night, I think.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm with you. I think there's positives to take. I'm definitely on that side of the fence with it. I also see the argument about the subs. Again, to me, it comes back to the squad depth issue. I don't necessarily think the subs, for the sake of the subs, actually caused it, which means I don't necessarily think it's Ange Postecoglou's fault, if you want to put it that way. I think that they made sense, as I say, and I think ultimately, I've seen a few comments saying about chasing a third and the way that they went about it when they were 2-1 up, even with it 2-2. I don't know what you expected to happen. They were never going to camp out in the 18-yard line. It's just not going to happen. It's asking for it to end up 3-2, 4-2, 5-2 for me. They're far more equipped to continue trying to get either a counter-attack, controlling the ball, or going forward in some description than they are to sit on their own box and try and withstand a barrage of attacks. It's just asking for trouble if Celtic set up that way, whether they're 2-1 up or 3-1 down. It's not going to happen, and I don't think it should happen.
Now Frank comes back in again here and he says, of course there was much good last night, and overall Ange's done a great job, but the facts are still that when you're 2-0 up with 8 minutes to go, you must only try and play it out. End of. I agree with that as well, Frank. I just think Celtic's lack of quality just saw them not able to see that out, because Bayer Leverkusen were coming on strong.
You've got to remember as well, though, that it's not that, like, playing it out is, it's all well and good saying that as a kind of a sentence, but it wasn't necessarily from playing it out that those goals came.
Yeah.
If anything, I would argue that with the second goal in particular, it was the lapse in concentration. It was the reaction to a heavy touch and then trying to hoof it that it actually came from, rather than not playing it out well. So I think it's too easy when Celtic concede a goal or lose a game to go, oh well, it's cause Ange is telling them to do this and telling them to do that. I don't think it's as simple as that.
Sons of Scotland 67 comes in, spot on. We gave them a good game and we must strengthen January and put it behind us. Will McMillan comes in and says we need a bit more quality in the bench. That's exactly what we've been talking about. Will and Ian McIntosh comes in. Expectation at Celtic is scary. 2 months ago, you wouldn't bet against them to beat anyone now. We expect to beat a top Bundesliga team. It's disappointing, but the chin up. I think that's the way yourself and myself are seeing that, Sean. As the squad quality improves, so the result in Europe. Andrew Gallia saying that as well, and that's kind of what we're saying this morning too. Rab McCune comes back in. Ange plays the Celtic way before the 90s. We never ever took a step back. 3-0, we went for 4. It's just the way he plays. Going to have to get used to it. Massive positives, says Pedro. Isaac McQuaid comes in. Joe Hart kept us in it, as the scoreline could have been more than it was. I have to touch upon that. Joe Hart's double save. Absolutely incredible bit of goalkeeping. And then there was another save where he saved with his foot. I mean, he was on fire last night, yet he still conceded 3 goals and ended up on the losing side. That's football for you, isn't it?
Well, it's a weird one because in my match ratings, when I was reading them back through after I put them up, I was going, it's a bit of an odd day when Celtic have conceded 3 and I've gave the keeper an 8 and the 2 centre-backs 7s. But I don't think any of the 3 of them were at fault for any of the goals, despite what the commentators might have said about Welsh for the first one. It wasn't his fault. And I thought they played well. I thought Hart was outstanding. I kind of mentioned that yesterday when we were talking about the predicted lineups, that I thought a couple of wobbly games from him, that Celtic really needed him to be back in top form, and he was. Thought his double save. I kind of disagree with you, actually. I think the one with his foot, I don't think he knew much about it. I don't even think he had time to spread himself. I think it just hit his foot and went over. But the double save was outstanding. More so the reaction to the first of the saves to get himself across and dive at the attacker's feet. It was fearless.
The boy
you've got to. He's not going to get an assist, obviously, but you've got to credit him for that. To have the wherewithal to pick out Forrest, and he did pick him out. It wasn't just a lump; he picked him out, and then that directly led to the second goal. So, Joe Hart, well done.
Second goal's a terrific counter-attacking goal. I mean, he shelled it long, but he's picked him out with a pass. Forrest's flick's superb, and from then on, you sort of thought there was something on. I know they got the fortune with the defender slipping, but Jota's drilled finish is exquisite. It's a real classic counter-attacking goal from Celtic. Slick, the way the manager wants them to play, and and as you said, after that, for a period after that, for about 10 minutes, you actually thought Celtic were going to score a third. They were looking pretty comfortable. Again, I backed it. All when the roof caves in with 8 minutes to go, and that's fine. But I just think there's a lot more to be positive about. Sons of Scotland comes back in and says the progress is clear to see. We are getting better. Strengthening in January. Brian Roberts comes in and says strength in January and Celtic will come good. I find it hard to disagree with these comments, Sean. And we appreciate you commenting, guys. It's always good to hear your thoughts and read your thoughts as well. So there's a lot to be positive about, Sean.
I think so, and you've got to remember that was a 9-match unbeaten streak. Obviously, it's at an end now, but as I say, I don't think that as much as they're leaving there with no points, I don't think they're leaving there with no hope, no confidence. I think there's definitely positives to take from it. Obviously, as with every setback that Celtic have, it's how they respond to it. Ange mentioned that a bit within a game, but it's just as true when you take it a wee zone out a wee bit to the fixture list. And obviously, it's Aberdeen on Sunday coming to Parkhead. Almost a quirk of fate because, as you mentioned, that Aberdeen game was the one that kick-started the 9-match unbeaten run. So there's no reason, if they respond rightly, if they take the confidence that I think they should take from Thursday night, that they can't kick-start another unbeaten run.
Well, McMillan comes back in. True, the fact that Celtic are disappointed tells you a lot. Second goal's fantastic play by the boys. Exactly. I think the measure of the disappointment shows how much Celtic have improved in the last 5 months, Sean. So there we go. And the fans, Brown Stewart comes in, the fans were absolutely amazing. They never stopped singing. That was one thing that came through very much on the telly, that they got real backing from from the supporters. Now, it might be Black Friday and the mood might be darkened, but hopefully we've cheered you up a little bit. And as you can see along the bottom, there's a Black Friday deal for subscriptions to the Celtic Way. It's £1 a month for the first 6 months. Or if you prefer, why not take out a yearly subscription for $17.49? That's a 50% reduction. As always, we appreciate you contributing and putting in your comments in the comment section. Sean, thanks for your contribution. You know, Celtic were down last night, but they're certainly not out. Green shoots of recovery and progress, I can see, Sean. Here's hoping that they can get themselves back in the winning trail against Aberdeen on Sunday.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Tony.
everybody.